So what are some of the key differences when it comes to being employed and self-employed, in this case freelance? Well, first of all, there's a financial perspective. So you have to look at some of the benefits that you get as an employee. For example, a pension that the employer will pay into, sick pay, holiday days, that type of thing. Of course, once you go freelance, you will lose all of those elements. Now, that's a trade-off because financially, potentially, subject to how you price, which we'll link to a separate video on, you can earn more money as a freelancer than maybe you were as being employed. Now, for many of you, perhaps money isn't the main driver, which is absolutely fine. So let's talk about autonomy. That's often one of the main reasons, freedom and autonomy, where people go self-employed and freelance. Now, don't get me wrong, there are definitely some organisations where they offer more autonomy than others. They may have an entrepreneurial setup in their business and encourage this type of thing. But ultimately, there's going to be some level of management or control, however you want to look at it, where they're looking at your time or they're analysing your output and your tasks, and you need to share that with your line manager or whoever you're working underneath in the business. When you go freelance, obviously you lose all that. But the trade-off is you still have a client to answer to. But if you set up your processes correctly, you will not have to work at certain times, for example. You can get paid by the outcome rather than the input in terms of time and the number of hours you're working on tasks. So there is a way of crafting the freedom and autonomy, but you have to be proactive about that. Because what I found with many early stage freelancers is they can easily get into a situation where the main reasons they started freelance, which was for the freedom and autonomy, they actually lose that because they create a situation where they've got too many clients on the go, they've committed to too many projects, they've maybe committed to deadlines that they find difficult to achieve, and actually they create this situation where they've lost all control and they're very frustrated, and they don't have the ability as an employee where you can just kind of switch off at the end of the day, whereas when you're freelance, sometimes you can carry that throughout 7 days a week and be thinking about things in the evening. So although you can gain autonomy and freedom while being freelance compared to being employed, it has to be something you proactively consider. The other thing with being freelance, which sometimes people don't always think about in advance, is the lack of teamwork. Because ultimately, initially, you will probably be working by yourself, and you may have come from either a small team or a larger business where you're involved as part of a team. And I've known a number of people who have gone freelance and actually gone back to being employed because they found that difficult. So if that is an important part for you, there are many things you can do. There are lots of freelance communities out there now, but also you can collaborate with partners, and particularly as you build up a bank of clients, you're almost going to become, it's a bit of a oversaid phrase, but an extension of their team, so you can have a good relationship with your clients and the people who work in the client's business. So there are ways to mitigate that as well. So there's just a few pointers to really identify the differences between being employed and freelance, and what you need to do to make sure that you get the benefit for the main reasons you decided to take whatever route you've chosen.